A Hero's Return, Chapter 5, A Race Against Time. So why would the forest be under attack? Malon was trying her best to hold on as opponent was galloping at full speed. I mean, it's just a bunch of trees, right? It's more than a forest. It's a crucial part of Hyrule. If it wasn't for the Kokiri, you wouldn't have wood for your houses or fuel for your fire. Malon looked up and swore she saw a tear form in the corner of his eye. Gripping him tighter, she continued on. They must mean a lot to you. They raised you from a baby, right? Yes, without them, I would have died alongside my mother. Tears were beginning to pour down Link's face. Why choose me? Why take away my real family and tell me to destroy an enemy I know nothing about? Link pulled on the reins and Epona slid to a halt. He pulled himself together and got off the horse. Stay here. Before Malon could speak her mind, he was already through the entrance and halfway across the bridge. As he entered his home village, he noticed a person resembling himself standing just ahead of him. The only difference was he looked almost like a shadow. You could almost see right through him. It took you long enough. The mysterious figure turned and with a sinister smile, Let's play a game. Who are you and why do you look exactly like me? I am you, only I'm not a goody two-shoes like you. I was created from the darkness from your heart. He pulled out what seemed to be a sword out of nowhere. If you can beat me in a one-on-one battle and find your friends before all the sand hits the bottom, as if by magic an hourglass appeared in his free hand, I will leave your pathetic village and never return. And what if I lose? Link pulled out his knife and prepared his shield. If you lose your life. The Dark Link rushed towards our hero and kicked him, hitting his shield and knocking him over. Come on, you can do better than that. Link strengthened his grip on the knife, struggled to his feet, and proceeded to charge towards his darker self. He swung the small blade in a downward motion, hoping to hit his opponent in his chest. Sadly, this was not meant to be. Instead of dodging to the side or back, he seemed to disappear. However, before Link could realize this, his dark counterpart appeared behind him, leaned in, and gently whispered, How does it feel to have lost your whole family, to have been abandoned in the woods by your own mother? Hearing that, Link stepped forward out of fear and anger. How dare you speak of my mother like that? Once again, he tried to rush towards his enemy, but yet again, he disappeared right before the blade hit him. This time, though, he didn't reveal himself. Link scrambled to find a real weapon, but he forgot that his knife is indeed a sword in the hands of the Kokiri. He went into his old neighbor's house to see if he could find anything useful. Nothing, he told himself. Just then, he could faintly hear a voice. It doesn't matter where you go, I will find you. Outside, Darkling could be heard kicking doors in one by one. And it seems you are running out of time. I expected so much more from the one destined to destroy the future king and save Hyrule. By this point, he was only 2 doors away from finding Link. Think, he told himself, how can I defeat an enemy that can't be harmed by normal weapons and can disappear quickly? He had no more time to think as once again Darklink rose up from behind him and kicked the middle of his back. The force was so great that he was knocked all the way back outside. He then rolled and landed flat on his back. Now his foe was standing right above him. Because I'm such a generous person, I'll lend you my sword and give you a free shot. Darklink shoved the dark and frightening blade into the ground. It stopped at half of a foot deep. Link rolled over and reached for the sword's hilt. Come on, time is running out, although there's no way you'll defeat me. The hourglass reappeared, and there was barely any sand in the top half. Link grasped the hilt and shakily pulled himself up. As he pulled the sword out of the earth, it seemed to change. The darkness looked as if it was melting away. Darklink noticed and scoffed at what he was witnessing. So you have the ability to cut darkness. You're still not powerful enough to defeat me. A smirk now ran across Darklink's face as Link was finally able to stand upright. With all the injuries he had sustained, he struggled to speak. I have no idea what this ability is, but I will stop you. With his last bit of strength, he lunged at the dark counterpart, pointing the sword forward. Sadly, just before the blade could enter his dark form, Darklink grabbed the tip with his bare hands and pulled the sword from Link's weak grasp. Looks like you're out of time. Like a flash of lightning, and as the last grain of sand fell, the blade was flipped and forced straight through Link's torso. He fell back, and the last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Dark Link making his way towards the great Deku tree. Outside the village, Malon was getting worried. She noticed what looked like the trees leading into the forest dying. What in Hyrule is going on? She began to worry. She jumped off of Epona and darted towards the bridge. She came to an abrupt halt as she noticed that the bridge was broken. I guess the bridge was connected to the forest. Quickly thinking, she climbed down the half that was still attached on her side. Luckily, she only had to drop a few feet when she reached the end. I hope I don't get lost. Only thinking of Link, she nervously marched on. Deep in the forest, in the sacred meadow, Saria and all the surviving Kokiri were huddled together, hoping the danger would eventually pass. I hope Link gets here in time. Saria was taking a quick head count to ensure no one was left behind. It didn't take long for her to notice just one missing. Where's Mido? She looked around and he was nowhere to be seen. A little Kokiri girl spoke up and told her that she saw Mido heading back towards the village. Ugh, does he ever listen? She stormed back off towards the village. It wasn't necessary, but she felt it would calm her a little, so she gave everyone specific instructions before leaving. Everyone stay here and stay quiet. Back at the entrance, Malon was deciding what to do. The other side of the bridge was low enough to grab, but looked weaker than the side she climbed down. She then saw a ladder that scaled the cliff just to her left. I have to see what's going on, but I don't want to risk getting lost in the woods. She headed to the ladder, thinking if something happened, there's bound to be someone roaming the forest for protection. She immediately found that she was right. The second she got up to the top of the ladder, she saw a small Kokiri boy staring at the broken bridge. This can't be true. The Deku tree can't be dead. The boy paced around in shock. He finally stopped and noticed Malon. He looked up and gave a puzzled look. What's the Deku tree, and how can you tell it's dead? The boy's look turned from puzzled to anger. The Deku tree is the guardian of the forest. I noticed the forest dying and came here to check on the bridge. It's rotting because the Deku tree is dying. He turned and headed back in the direction in which he came. Not really having a choice, he decided to help the woman whom he only just met. The bridge was made from his branches. He connected us to the rest of Hyrule. If you follow me, I'll lead you to safety. He led the confused Malon through the deadly maze of trees. Many have entered, and some have never returned. One wrong turn in this place, and you could be lost forever. They eventually reached the sanctuary. This place was untouched by the hands of death. Everything was flourishing. Bushes rose as high as she could see, trees blooming fruits without end, and what looked like a church in the back. What is this place? It's a safe haven for us. Mido walked in front of her and pointed out interest points as if he was a tour guide. Nothing can get in here. Technically, you shouldn't even be able to step foot here. The goddesses must favor you. He continued forward, but at a quicker pace. They finally reached the heart of the little sanctuary. Where's Link? She grabbed the little boy, and the worry on his face returned. If the forest is dying, then it must mean something has gone wrong with him as well. Get off me, woman. He smacked her arms away without any trouble. If he's not here, then that idiot is in the village. Then take me to him. She began pulling him towards the entrance. Mido, however, showed resistance. Are you mad? It's too dangerous. Saria can speak with the spirits of the forest. She'll give you an update on Link. He looked around in search for her, but she was nowhere to be found. She must have gone out to search for me. He shook his head and giggled a little. Why in Goddess's name is she so thick-headed? Saria had nearly made it to the entrance when what seemed like a little blue bug smacked her in the face. What the? A closer look revealed it to be a fairy. She shook her head before flying away. Saria yelled after her, hoping to find out who it was. Excuse me, where are you going? The fairy turned back around and flew up to Saria's face. I need to find someone named Saria. Link is in danger. She immediately pushed the fairy aside like a fly and rushed into the village. It didn't take long for her to spot Link lying in a pool of blood. She could see he was still breathing, but she needed to hurry if she wanted to save his life. She ran to him and kneeled at his side. Link, don't worry, I'll save you. With a heavy breath, he told her to go right outside, just past the bridge, and get the bottle of milk out of the saddlebag on the horse. I'll be right back. She was gone only a couple minutes before she returned with a look of dread on her face. The bridge is gone, and there's no way else across. The little fairy had caught up and flew right up to Saria's face once more. He was injured by a man that looked exactly like him. She looked down at Link's wound with the sword still sticking out. There is only one way to heal a wound this bad. You must ask the great fairy hidden somewhere in Lost Woods to help. Saria leapt up and started heading off to find the fairy. I'll find her, but could you go and grab the bottle from the horse's satchel right outside? He believes it may help. Oh, and I never got your name. It's Navi. No more words were traded between the two, and they went their separate ways. It didn't take Navi long to get to the horse, but she had the problem of carrying the bottle. She got herself in the satchel and rummaged around to see if she saw anything useful. All she saw were what looked like a robe, 3 bottles, some other sorts of clothing, and a bag of rupees. That's it. I'll pour out the rupees and push the bottle into the bag. Goddesses, I'm smart. It was easier said than done. She had to push over a bag bigger and heavier than her, and push a bottle just a tad smaller over and into the bag. Wait a minute. What if I run the bag over to the bottle? She didn't feel so smart now. All that was left was to find an easier way to dump the rupees. There isn't much. She thought about pulling them out one by one. Going ahead with that idea, she removed all the rupees and swung the bag over the bottle. It had a string on it, so it would be easier to carry. She flew as carefully as possible as not to drop the bag. It took her longer to return than it did to get to the horse. Link, I got the bottle. I have no idea how this will help, though. She gently placed the bag next to him. It won't heal me, but it will give me enough strength until Saria gets back. Anyways, did you see a girl out there? Is she okay? The little fairy looked bewildered. There was no one out there. Link struggled to sit up, but he was eventually able to. If she's not there, then she must have entered the forest. I have to go after her. He grabbed the blade and slowly pulled it out of his abdomen. He screamed in agony as the tip of the blade reached the end of the wound. He sighed as it left his body, and he tossed it to the side. He then grabbed the bag with the milk, tore the bottle out, and chugged the whole bottle. With bloody hands, he attempted to stand up. He couldn't even get off his knees before falling over. Let Saria get the great fairy first. Navi flew up and landed on his left shoulder. Besides, I have a feeling she'll be just fine. Link looked over at Navi, who had a reassuring smile on her little face. Fine, I can't get up anyways. He may not have been able to get up, but he was still able to crawl, so he found a nice log to lean against and fell asleep. Just hold on, big guy. You'll be back up and fighting soon enough. I never got your name. Malon was sitting on what looked like a bench, but was really a bush strong enough to hold anyone's weight. It's Mido. I hope you understand it's too dangerous out there at the moment. He looked straight into her eyes and in the hopes of calming her down. I know Link isn't one of us, but he is strong. He won't be defeated so easily. Please, he saved my life, and I owe it to him. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to a now weeping Malon. If you won't help me, then I'll go myself. She pushed Mido out of the way and ran out into the forest. Women. He didn't want to, but he ran off to catch up with her. Malon didn't get a chance to get far before Mido stopped her. If you want to get to Link, then you have to do exactly as I say. That means no wandering off. She simply nodded her head, and then they were off with Mido leading the way. The forest looked different than when they were walking through it before. If you're not careful, you can get lost. The paths change every once in a while, but something seems a bit off. And he was right. The trees seemed to move, and new paths would open and others would close. Without proper knowledge of these woods, one can get lost forever. Don't worry, I'm too freaked out now to wander off on my own. She grabbed a hold of Midow's arm as they rounded a corner. They eventually ran into Saria. She seemed out of breath, which was unusual. She was very fit and could run great distances if needed. What are you doing here? And who is that? She had to sit down before finishing. She looked up at the taller farm girl. I'm Malon. I was traveling with Link. Is he all right? Saria turned her head. He was run through with a sword. He's alive, but he needs the Great Fairy's aid. She stood back as she finished catching her breath. Now we have to run. Those creatures that attacked the village are now in these woods. At that exact moment, a rustling and growling noise was heard in the distance. To Malon, it was a nastier growl than that of what Link called a moblin. All three darted off just as they got in sight. They were green, scaly, and wore thick armor. There were only two of them, but they were not to be messed with. Mido was the first to ask such an obvious question. What do you suppose we do now? How do you suppose we lose those guys? Straight, right, left, and then straight again. They just couldn't lose them. The only way to lose them is to find the fairy. She is protected by a barrier, so only we can see where she is. Saria knew exactly what they had to do, but they had a couple obstacles deterring their focus. They stopped for a few minutes and were relieved to hear nothing but their own heavy breathing. How can you know where the fairy is? I've never been able to find her myself. Minnow was angry at the fact that Saria was able to find her while the self-proclaimed leader of the Kokiri could barely get through the Lost Woods himself. And on top of that, what about the farm girl? What if she's not able to enter her lair? Then as a man, you will stand guard and protect her. He gave her a look of agreement. Now, let's go before the uglies decide to catch up. Link. Navi flew around his head in an attempt to get his attention. Link, wake up. Dark Link was returning from whatever he had planned. Navi whizzed behind Link's head to hide as Dark Link came into view. What am I going to do? I hope they return soon. So you survived? His shadow was kneeling in front of him. He just stared at Link for a few minutes before getting back up. He walked over, took the sword in his hand, and walked back over to his counterpart. I hope the next time we meet you put up a better fight. You won't be able to defeat me, but it would still be entertaining. He took the sword and thrust it deep into the ground between Link's feet. Consider this a gift from me. Dark Link, with his goal accomplished, set off for his next destination. Until next we meet. With Dark Link gone, Navi returned to a waking Link. Come on, get up. She tried everything, even kicking him in the face. After a bit of back and forth of kicking and yelling in his ear, she was finally able to rouse him. You must stay awake. I need to save my energy, so let me rest. His head went limp, and he passed out again. I hope you're right.